Okay, so this activity is about creating shapes of all types and forms, and it's building on what you've learned so far. So really, now that you know how to work with pages, you need to know how to create stuff on those pages. So we're going to create a brand new document here, and we're going to go to print and to A4. Make sure we're working in millimeters. It's going to be 8 pages, facing pages, 3 columns, with a 5mm gutter. Our margins, we're going to unlink them and we'll set the top to 20, the bottom to 20, the inside to 15 and the outside to 15. And then we'll set a bleed of 3mm all round. And finally, for the slug, only on the bottom, we'll set a 30mm slug and create. Okay, so we now have our 8-page document and our master pages. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use existing magazine layouts to reference when we create our layouts. Now this is a good practice to get into when you're still learning, because one of the best ways to become a master at something is to emulate other masters. And so if you have a look, I'm just going to bring up my browser here. You can see this is a magazine called Photojournal, or what's it called? Let me actually just check. It's called Digital SLR Photography. It's one of the magazines that I subscribe to. And it's got these really beautiful layouts. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of these layouts as our background to help us to lay things out nicely. So this is one of the ones we're going to work on. We're also going to look at the cover, and we're going to also look at the one with the little kid in it, this one here. So I have actually supplied you with screen grabs of those 3 different layouts which you're going to work with. So this is not plagiarism. We're not copying exactly the photos and the stories or anything. We're just looking at the layout because I like the layout and I think it's a successful recipe for good layout. So we're going to use that as our inspiration basically. So back in InDesign, we're going to work with master pages because this is just creating the shapes. So I'm going to go to a master, so double click, and I'm going to right click and say a master options for a master, and I'll change the name to cover layout. Let's do that, and we'll set it to 1 page. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to put that layout in the background so that we can use it as our reference. So although we haven't covered layers yet in a lot of detail, we're going to work with layers because it's going to make our life easier. So I'm going to go to the layers panel, and where you see layer 1, just click once there and call that let's say template. And we're going to take our rectangle frame tool, that's the rectangle tool with the cross through it, and we're going to draw a rectangle the size of the page. Okay, not to the bleed, which is the red line, but just to the size of the page. And we're going to go to File, Place. And you're going to go to Activity 211, and you've got a cover sample there. Click on that cover sample and open. And then you're going to right click on it and choose Fitting, Fit Content to Frame. Okay, so that is the layout that we're going to be using in the background, and I don't want it to be quite as strong as this because it's going to interfere with what the work we're doing. So up here is an opacity value. I want you to bring that opacity value down to 50%, and then you can lock that layer. And we're now going to add a new layer from the bottom of our layers panel, and we'll just leave that as layer 2 because we're not going to do anything more with layers. We're just going to work on this layer. So if we look at this layout, it's basically got a background picture, that's the whole cover photo, and then it's got some text frames on top of that, and then it's got this circular text area, and it's got this area for a graphic that's got transparency around it. So even though it looks complex, it's actually a pretty simple layout. So we'll start with a background image. So again, rectangle frame tool, and we're going to draw this time from the bleed, the red line, all the way to the bleed on the other side. And so that we can actually see that there is something there, we're going to fill it. So up here is your fill color. We're going to fill it with black with a 20% tint. Okay, so if I hide that layer from the little eyeball, you can see that I can see my template below it, and there's this object. So what I'm going to do is select that object and go to hide. Okay, so that I can see what I'm doing. So that one's done. The next thing is we want to create some text frames. Now we could just take our type tool and drag out text boxes, but actually in this case, because I want them to be fairly precise, I'm going to rather actually create boxes and then convert them into text frames. So you can do that. You can create any shape and you can convert it into a graphic or a text frame. So I'm going to take my rectangle tool, that's the normal rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle for this Nikon mirrorless marble. Okay, I'll draw text frame there, and I'm going to fill it with cyan 20% and no stroke. So for the stroke here, none. Okay, then I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say content text. So this is now a text frame that is in that shape. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller there. Okay, so if I unhide that object, so object, show all on spread, you can see now I've got my background image at 20% black and then my text at 20% cyan. Okay, so I'm going to hide this object again, hide, and let's do some more text stuff. So rectangle, now you can see that the text for photography goes the full width, so I'm going to draw a rectangle from the edge of the screen here all the way down, and in fact I'm going to include the strap line in that as well, so all the way to here, not to the bleed. Okay, actually in fact I am going to go take it to the bleed, so all the way to the bleed on both sides. Okay, and then I'm going to make it cyan 20%, no stroke, and I'm going to right click content text. Okay, so that's the top text part. Now the bottom text part, you could make one text frame in 3 columns. I'm going to because my columns don't quite fit with these, I'm going to actually change that and just make 3 text frames. So again, I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw the text frame there, and I will set it to cyan, 20% tint, no stroke, and back to my selection tool, right click on it, content, text. And then to make a copy, let me just zoom in a bit here. To make a copy of that, I'm going to hold down Option on the Mac or Alt on Windows and drag a copy. If I add Shift, it's going to keep it in a straight line. Okay, and then again, you can see it indicates when there's an equal space between them. So obviously I need to now make some adjustments. So I'm going to select all 3 together and just bring that in. So that it fits in there. Okay, so it's not exactly the same as the template, but we're using the template as a sample. And then you can see in the template it's got these little vertical white lines here in between each column there. So I'm going to put those in. So take my line tool and I'm going to zoom in a bit more. Yeah, and I'm going to draw a vertical line. And if I hold down Shift, the line will be exactly vertical. And I'm going to make that paper. Okay, so in InDesign you don't have white, you have paper. Back to my selection tool, hold down Option or Alt and drag a copy, keep Shift on so that it stays in line. Okay, so that's the bottom part, and then we need this circle here, so I'm going to zoom in there. I'm going to take my ellipse tool, and I want to make sure that it actually lines up properly, so I'm going to drag a guide from my top ruler like that, and from my vertical ruler like that, so that I've got a reference there, and then my ellipse tool, I'm going to go to that intersection and I'm going to hold down Shift so that it makes a perfect circle, and I'm going to draw that circle there, and then I'm going to make that cyan 20% and no stroke. And now I'm going to right click on it and go to Content, Text. Okay, and then one final thing we have here is this little area for a photo with some transparency in it. So I'm just going to select these and hide them so that I can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take the rectangle frame tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle from the bleed basically over that image there. Whoops. Just do that again. Okay, and I'm going to make it black, but this time not 20%, because remember the background full page image is also 20%. We're going to make this 40% so that it's visible. Okay, and then I'm going to unhide everything, so Object, Show All on Spread, and then fit that in. So that's my master page for my cover. So I've got a background image, I've got some text, so I can see it's text because it's got these little badges around it. Text, 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 and then those little vertical lines in there. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can actually go to the template layer. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to go unlock the template layer. I'm going to select this background image and delete it and lock it again, and now I can go back up here. Alright, so that's the cover master page. Now we're going to go back to pages and we're going to make a new double page spread master page. So new master, we will call this DPS for double page spread layout 1. We'll put it at 2 pages, everything else is fine and okay. Right, so now we need to go to that template layer, unlock it, take our rectangle frame tool. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Whoops, that's probably a bit too much. Let me just close my layers panel so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to draw a rectangle frame, the full size of the double page spread from bleed to bleed. And then I'm going to go File, Place, DPS Layout 1 Sample. Okay, and we're going to right click and Fitting, Fit Content to Frame. We're also going to change our opacity up here to 50%. So same as before. And then in our layers, we'll lock that layer and we'll work on layer 2. Alright, so here we have a picture that takes up the whole page, the whole double page spread in the background. So rectangle frame tool from the bleed all the way down to the bleed here. We'll set it to black 20%. And we will hide that because you need to work and see the background. So now we need some text. So this time I am just going to drag text frame. So text, and then I'm going to drag a text frame where it says picture special. Just drag it a bit bigger than that because your text might be longer than that. And go back to your selection tool and then go to your fill color. Make sure it's on the fill for the container, cyan, 20%. Okay, back to my type tool. And now I have this Galaxy Quest text frame, so I'm going to drag a text box over that and the deck at the bottom, that little sort of paragraph at the bottom is called the deck. It's kind of like a summary of the whole story. And I'm going to go back to my selection tool, cyan 20%. Okay, back to my type tool. And here, in fact, I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm just going to hold down Alt or Option and make a copy to this side. Like that. Just try and balance them out. Alright, and then we have this little circle with special awards. So again, I'm going to use my guides. I'm going to drag a horizontal guide and a vertical guide to help me draw the right size. And then I'm going to take my ellipse tool and start at that intersection, hold Shift, create a circle. Let's make that cyan 20%. No stroke, selection tool, right click, content, text. Okay, so that is that's what we've got so far. So what I'm going to do is unhide or show all, and I'm going to go back to my layers and under template, let's hide the top layer. Under template, I'm going to take this and delete it and lock it again, go back up here. And now I'm just going to add a few other things here. So as I said, those double page spread samples I provided are there just as an inspiration. That doesn't have to be exact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some little thumbnail images here. So I'm going to take my rectangle frame tool, and following these columns, I'm going to start in the corner of that column and I'm going to start dragging a box. But I'm going to drag it all the way down, and before I release my mouse, I'm going to use my up arrow, 1, 2, 3, 4, to make 5 different boxes. And then I'm going to release my mouse and I now have 5 boxes for images there. While they're still selected, black, 40% tint. Okay, then what I want is I want a piece of text in the corner here as kind of like a circular shape. So I'm going to make the circular shape first. So you're going to take the ellipse and I'm just going to click over here and I'm going to type in there 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters. Okay, there it is, and selection tool, and I'm just going to bring that in here. Alright, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle over the right hand half of this circle. Okay, roughly the right hand half. Okay, and then I'm going to take the rectangle and I'm going to draw another rectangle roughly over the top half of that circle. So now I'm going to select this top rectangle, hold down Shift, select the right hand rectangle, and I'm going to go to Window, Object and Layout, Pathfinder. Okay, and here's my Pathfinder panel, and this allows me to choose how to combine shapes. So with those 2 rectangles selected, I'm going to choose Add Combines Shape. So it's combined those 2 rectangles together. Now I'm going to hold down Shift and add the ellipse to that selection, and I'm going to choose the second one, which is Subtract. So what I'm left with is a little pie shape, which I can now nudge into the corner of this page, and I can make it cyan, 20% tint, no stroke, and I can right click on it and say content, text. Okay, so that's a little shape at the side there using a combination of different shapes. And then on the other page, I want to create another shape here for an image. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle the full size of that page up to the middle and from bleed to bleed. And I'm just going to, just so we can see it, I'm going to fill it with black, 40% tint, and no stroke. Alright, so with this we're going to do some editing now. So I'm going to switch to the direct selection tool, click away, and then I'm going to go down to this corner point and drag it in like that. I'm going to switch to my pen tool and go over this line here until I see a little plus button to add a point. And then over here, halfway, another plus to add a point. Then to my direct selection tool, I'm going to drag this point out. Whoops, I need to click away first. Then I go over that point, drag it like that, go over this point, drag it like that. Then back to my pen tool, holding Option on the Mac, Alt on Windows, I'm going to go over these points and drag to make them smooth corners, or smooth points, and also here. Okay, so that is my shape. Now this actually isn't going to be an image in here, it's just going to be a shape. So if we right click and go to contents, you can see that it's unassigned, which is what I want. I don't want it to be a graphic and I don't want it to be text. So that's correct. But now I need to position it in the right place. So I'm going to right click on it and say arrange, send to back. So now it's gone behind the main picture. So now I'm going to go object, arrange, bring forward. So it just brings it one forward in front of that image. So it's behind the text but in front of this image. Okay, so that is our double page layout for our master page here, double DPS layout 1. And that is this page here. So what you are going to do now on your own, so first of all save this, is we're going to put it on our desktop and just call it 8-page layout. So now you've got your cover master page, you've got your DPS layout 1 master page. Now what you're going to do is you're going to create a new master and you're going to call it DPS layout 2, make it 2 pages, okay. And then in the layers panel on the template layer, you're going to draw a text rectangle frame. I'll just close here so I can see. Okay, you're going to, oops, didn't work. Okay, you're going to go File, Place, and you're going to choose this DPS Layouts 2 sample, right click, Fitting, Fit Content to Frame, 50% opacity. Okay, and then you're going to lock that layer, and on layer 2, you are now going to create the shapes for everything. So just to help you a little bit here, you're going to have one large rectangle frame in the background from bleed to bleed at a 20% black tint for the background image. You're then going to have a text frame here. You're going to have, for this, you can actually do this as one large text frame. So you're going to do one large text frame here over that text. Then you're going to go back, once you've done that, to your layers. You're going to delete the template image from the template layer. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you next time.